This is the State of the Arts, where local arts insiders join me to talk about what's happening in arts and culture. Today, I'm joined by Geoff VanDyke, the editorial director at 5280 Magazine, Eden Lane, the host of In Focus with Eden Lane on Colorado Public Television, and Ray Mark Rinaldi, the fine arts critic at the Denver Post. Let's start by talking about Space to Create Colorado. It's an initiative that the governor announced earlier this summer, the idea being a space for artists and also a space for the community to kind of come together. Now they're starting in Trinidad, Colorado. Is this a win-win for artists and these small communities? What do you think, Eden? I'll start with you.
While it sounds very easy to support and get behind, it could be a little confusing. And then how do you adjudicate that? And if the artist is successful, do they sort of grow out of their chance to have this subsidized space? Or is it based on their percentage of income? There are so many questions. It's hard to be a cheerleader just yet.
And what do you think about the idea to start in a rural community as opposed to starting here in Denver, where artists are already getting priced out of spaces that they're renting? Geoff?
I mean, my first thought was we need more affordable housing in Denver, for artists and for everyone. I love it in theory, but again, like Eden said, this idea of what an artist is, I mean, my understanding is brewers fit under that umbrella, distillers, so it's very broad. I think it could be a boon for these rural communities. I do think we need to look at Denver, though, pretty seriously as well.
All downtowns are getting so segregated between haves and have-nots. So anything that brings diversity in income to that area is great. I think it's really interesting, though, that we've chosen artists to do that with, because teachers can't afford $2,300 a month for a one-bedroom in Lodo. Firefighters can. Anyone who works for a nonprofit. So we're sort of isolating artists as this class that gets a government handout. And while I think it's great, right, because I'm all about the artists, and I think that they do make neighborhoods interesting, there's something about it that I think is needs to be hashed out a little more clearly.
Let's talk about a different space now, a different public space, the Civic Center Amphitheater. And Ray, you had a piece earlier this summer that I thought was great that talked about the use of Civic Center Park in general. But one of the things that I thought about was the fact that the city is looking at what to do with the Denver Performing Arts Center, and one of the proposals in that whole possible reuse is putting an amphitheater where Sculpture Park is. What about Civic Center Park that's sitting there right now, and its primary use is seating when the food trucks are there and a pigeon haven?
My office is right across the street from Civic Center, so I look at it all day, and there's never anybody in it. Like, the food trucks come, they're there for 2 hours, and 10 minutes after they're gone, anything that would activate that space is great to me. Tying it into the Performing Arts Complex redo, which is going to be a $500 or $600 million project, is a great idea, because it could save money there and sort of bring more activity to a longer stretch of downtown. It's an amphitheater. We should use it. Let's
move on to the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. The funding is coming up for reauthorization in 2016, which seems a long way away. But there's so much to discuss around this issue. And the task force that was charged with looking at the issue did make a recommendation. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they came out with a proposal that said $33 million more is going to go to sort of the medium and small size venues. And that money would then come from the top 5 organizations instead of them getting that money. Is that the right way to go in terms of redistributing that money?
It's obviously a difficult topic, but I think, am I surprised that, an organization is being conservative and, not making sweeping changes? No.
It's interesting to see that the tier ones are starting to be a little more responsive, like the Denver Center for the Performing Arts starting to broaden their discount ticket program to try to reflect the support that they get from the community, which is really great. But then we have tier 3s like the Museo de las Americas not being able to ratchet up the programs they offer to get to that next level and extend their reach beyond what they've already been able to do, which is kind of one of the reasons that some people say they support the SCFD. So it would be interesting to see how that discussion plays out about redistributing that money between tier 1s, tier 2s, and tier 3s and helping them grow.
I mean, there's a lot of greed in this conversation, a lot of greed. But I think the biggest greed is coming from the large organizations. They get such a huge portion of that pot, and I just don't think they need it like they used to need it. When SCFD came around 20 years ago, they were all struggling. Now they're really financially sound. They're all in growth mode. Every single one of them has built new buildings or has new buildings or grounds in the works. The lower tier groups are doing the really hard work in the communities with minorities, hiring artists who can't get a job otherwise, going into neighborhoods and making neighborhoods better. I think we would be really wise to just shuffle a lot more of the money their way.
So the things that the public basically needs to know is that in 2016, you're going to vote on this issue again. What that question is going to look like and the percentage given to each of those three groups, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, is up for discussion from now until then. Okay, now time for my favorite part of our chat here, the comment card. Back in the days of pen and paper, you'd scribble something down and like drop it in a box on your way out of a museum or a gallery. But I'm gonna ask you to talk about it right here. I'll start with a dislike of mine. Over the past year, I've seen some theatrical productions that they're working with accents or dialects. And I think that if you are going to invest in a production and choreography and lights and sets and beautiful costumes, you'd be well served to invest in an accent or a dialect coach to come and help you. There really have been a handful of productions that otherwise I would have walked out of there thinking, home run, well done, except for the fact that I was pulled away by the fact that, you know, I was in Brooklyn and all of a sudden I'm in Boston, or I'm in London and all of a sudden I'm not quite sure where I am. So that would be one of mine. Anyone want to jump in?
Arts journalism in Colorado seems to be shrinking, but one of the things that happens is there are lots of small voices that are blogging reviews, for example, about theater and dance and music, performance arts. And often they're members of these performing groups that are posting their reviews. And I don't know that the average reader will understand that there's an invested interest in how they're reviewing these productions. They're incentivized to give a good review so that people in the show will repost. And I think that we could look for a deeper way to cover the arts, even if it's bloggers and members of the community.
Well, today I'm mad at everybody, but by that I mean audiences. I'm going to too many places where not enough tickets are being sold, too many empty seats at the orchestra, too many empty seats at dance concerts. This stuff is great. It deserves more attendance, and people need to get out there.
How about some likes, some things that we're not angry at?
I had the good fortune to see on back-to-back days a couple of Tier 2 SCFD shows. One at Clifford Still, it's called Repeat Recreate, and it's Clifford Still's replicas, so it's side-by-side paintings that he very deliberately did and sort of explored differences in shapes, form, and color. And then the other one is at MCA Denver. It's Marilyn Minter. Phenomenal paintings, just absolutely stunning enamel on metal.
Yeah, leave the kids at home for that one, though.
Yes.
You know, Denver's being built up very quickly, and a lot of the buildings that went up fast over the past 2 or 3 years have been just really ugly. And I think a lot of people are struggling with how to make that better. Well, now there's a movement to sort of have a design review, for the city of Denver to have actual design review. They already have like planning, site review, and code review, but to actually have architects and developers submit plans to a board that looks at aesthetics, that looks at livability, that looks at buildings' connections to nature, the way neighbors would interact with each other, sort of the things that could make like life better if you are living in the urban core. There seems to be some momentum going among architects, developers, designers, even in the city, so I'd like to see that continue.
Fantastic. Well, great to have all three of you here. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.